Hold not your peace.
And be not still, O. For lo, your enemies make a tumult.
For lo, your enemies make a tumult.
And they that hate you have lifted up the head.
And they that hate you have lifted up their head. Now, anybody know what a tumult is? Confusion. Those that hate you have brought about confusion. Now let's see why so much confusion. Go ahead.
They have taken crafty counsel against your people.
They have taken crafty counsel against your people. And who is his people? Israel, the nation of Yashra'al.
And consulted against your hidden ones.
They have consulted against your hidden ones.
They have said, come, and let us cut them off from being a nation.
Stop right there. They have said, come, let us cut them off from being a nation. Go ahead.
That the name of Yashra'al may be no more in remembrance.
Stop. That the name Yashra'al or Israel be no more in remembrance. Is that not what they did? Go ahead, Al.
For they have consulted together with one consent.
They have consulted together with one consent. Now notice he's using the pronoun they. So is it one person single or is it multiple? It's multiple people. Now we're going to see why. Go ahead.
They are confederate against you.
They are confederate against you. What does it mean to be confederate against you? Have any of y'all heard of the United Confederation? It's a league. Do y'all not know that every nation on this earth has a representative and is represented by an ambassador at the United Nations? Mm-hmm. Everybody but the nation of us. Everybody has a representative but us. I'm going to tell y'all something else that's strange. Y'all don't find it strange that only European nations have armies? Armies. Do y'all know that there are no black nations with armies? I'm not talking about a little rebel or militia that the British or whoever go into Africa and subdue these countries and they get one little militia group weapons to kill off all the other ones so they can rob them of the resources. That's not an army. I'm talking about a bona fide army. There's not one black nation with its own army. Y'all look at me like I'm speaking Chinese because you never thought about it. Every nation that has an army, they even Caucasus Asian or Asian. There's not one black nation who has its own army on this earth. Name an African country, and I'll show you where the British is in there, or the Russians are in there.
That's true.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have one. But I'm going to help you out, though. I'll finish reading now.
And they are confederate against you, the tabernacles of Edom and the Ishmaelites, or the Ishmaelites, the Moabites and the Hagarites, Gebal and the Ammon, and Ammon and Amalek, the Palestine, with the inhabitants of Sor, Ashur also is joined with them. They have helped the children of Lot. Do unto them as unto the Midianites, as to Sisera, as to Yabin, at the brook of the Kishon, which is perished at Endor.
You good right now? Okay. Now, he said they are confederate against you. Do y'all not find it strange that you have been in this land longer than anybody? I know that's the history y'all don't know. Before the so-called Native Americans that we see today come to this land, we were already here. Now, what needs to be understood is you've been in this land longer than anybody. How is it possible that you're still at the bottom socially and economically? Have y'all paid any attention to what happens when other people migrate here and come into this land? When they do it legally, what happens? They're given a stipend. They get business loans. They're able to be here 5 to 10 years tax-free. They're able to set themselves up so they can be socially and economically sustained or sustainable. You ever notice when Africans come here, they don't move to your neighborhood. They don't go to your schools. Really, they try not to have anything to do with you. The only relationship they want to have with you is to market to you, and you be a consumer of theirs. Because that's the importance of knowing. When I read the definition of Ham, who's the progenitor of the African people, it lets you know they're treating you indifferent because you're not their people. You are not African. So that's why that's very important. That's why we have to establish and start the lesson out that way. Because when they teach that all black people are African, that kind of brings about an illusion that it's hard to prove that you're Israel then. But when we go through and get scholarly sources to show that, no, this group of dark-skinned people are not sons of Ham, are not African. Well, if they're not African, and we know the sons of Japheth are, according to this book, I didn't read it, but it's in here, the father of the Europeans. Well, who in the world would this dark-skinned brown people be then? If they're not African, they're not Japheth's descendants, well, who do they belong to? Noah only has one of the sons left. That would be Shem. And that's why it's important to know, when you look at the history of slavery, when you take a walk down through the corridors of the annals of time, and when you see when they advertised or marketed the slaves, you never can find out one time in history where it was stated Africans for sale. You will always see Ebu or Heboo or Hebrew from Africa for sale. You never will find Africans for sale. Anybody know where the word Ebu comes from? Do y'all know Abraham? What was Abraham's father's name? Eber.
Grandfather.
I mean, yeah, you're right. His grandfather. He was Eber. That's where we get the word Ebo, Eber from. So when you see that word Ebo, it's telling you these people descend from a group of people, Hebrews, who was the descendants of Eber. That's very important, because there's a certain people that came through this transatlantic slave trade. And I heard another brother that's teaching on YouTube. He said something that I talk about all the time, and I wish I knew his name. His website or YouTube page is called Teaching Torah to the 12 Tribes.
Matthew.
Was that Matthew?
I think so.
But anyway, he talked about, y'all always hear me talk about the sub-Saharan slave trade. Before we came through the transatlantic slave trade, it was the Arabs who sold us to the British and the Portuguese.
Right.
That started the transatlantic slave trade. But we was in the sub-Saharan slave trade in the salt mines of Arabia for like anywhere from 11 to 1400 years. And that's the history they refuse to talk about in the public school system. And the reason why, if you go before the 17th century and start dealing with slavery from the 1600 moving backwards, you're going to deal with almost 1,000 years of the sub-Saharan slave trade. And guess what you find out about the sub-Saharan slave trade? The Arabs were never shy about identifying who they had in slavery. Matter of fact, when they sold the slaves to the British and the Portuguese, now if you're going to study the history of the Portuguese and the British, you know it was a long time before they would purchase slaves. They wouldn't do it. They thought it was inhumane. They would not buy the slave. It wasn't until the Arabs showed them. I just said told them. They showed them that these are the people of the book. And it's prophesied that they're supposed to be slaves. That's the only reason you had the British, they entered into the slave trade. They refused to buy slaves. The Portuguese and the British would not do it. It wasn't until the Arabs showed them that they were the people of the book, the slaves that they had, and showed them through the prophecies that they're supposed to be slaves. And that was a big part, or a big problem, when it came to the Portuguese people and the slaves. Do you not know they had to write laws and send out a decree to keep the Portuguese from marrying the slaves? They were in love with them. They didn't see no difference in them. Their skin color didn't matter. And they saw it being such a big problem till they had to outlaw it. Because they loved the slaves. Because what you have to realize, we weren't always just regular looking on the bottom. We were a beautiful people. We are a beautiful people. And so what you had is, you had that being a big problem when it came to the Portuguese people. They loved the slave. Matter of fact, if you want to get a good lesson on that history, go to the BBC website. Y'all familiar with BBC? Absolutely. And when you go to the BBC website, British, you know, they teach this stuff totally different. They don't do lies. They don't hide the history. Now, that's something they would not do. Right. Unlike these in America, the British will just tell it. And they give you raw facts. And that's very important. So, what we see in Psalm 83, you see that there's something being told here. Something that's taking place. Or something that's being set up. They don't hate you. They hate the Most High. But they know they can't do anything to him, so what do they have to do? You attack his people. You can't touch him, so you have to touch what's dear to him. You touch his people. And that's what happened in Psalm 83. He said, they're confederate against us. They said, come, let us cut them off, that the name of Israel be no more in remembrance. That's why you got all of these churches and institutions sending billions of dollars a year over to the land of Israel. And they look at true Israel every day. Look at them eyeball to eyeball. They hung them for years on trees. During the civil rights movement, they were shooting with fire hoses. Let their German shepherds bite on them. Through the Jim Crow era, it might well have been slavery. Through the black codes, it might well have been slavery. And it was slavery. It was just legalized slavery. And if y'all don't know what the black codes are or the Jim Crow era, go back and do a little research. It is very vivid and plain. It breaks it down. It's legalized slavery. You free a group of people from captivity or slavery, but you free them, you don't give them any kind of resources. So what are they going to do to survive? You know what they got to do to survive. Now, since you freed them, you've already looked down on the people. You're not going to give them employment. So what do? Since slavery has been outlawed and abolished, now you set up a legal system. If you see a slave man and he doesn't have a job, The law said put him in jail. How many merchants or business owners going to give a black man a job? A slave a job? Not in this country, not when you do the history. So now, you put them in jail or prison. So you have developed a system against the same people that you had in captivity. Now you fit to put them back into captivity. It's a legalized form of captivity. And it's a legalized form of captivity. So what are they to do? How do they survive? Now that's very important. Now let's go back. We're going to take a couple minutes, and I'm going to do a part 2 to this next week. Deborah 28 and 1. You got that, Morgan?
Oh, okay. Deborah 28, verse 1. And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently into the voice of Yahuwah thy Elohim, to observe and to do all his commandments, which I command you this day, that Yahuwah, your Elohim, will set you on high above all nations of the earth.
Will set you where? On high above all the nations on this earth. Now let me tell y'all something. And when you look at this, look at what I'm saying. Really look at and listen to what I'm saying. If I'm right here and the base is that floor and I fall, that's not anything. That's not a hurt. That doesn't hurt. Let's say socially and economically, I'm right here and the base of the bottom is that floor. That doesn't mean much. But let's say I'm way up there, socially, like where the Rothschilds and all of them are. And I fall, and now I'm in the condition that I myself am today. That hurts, y'all. That hurts. That's why we moan and groan and we cry so. Because of the condition we're in. If we were a people that were in those conditions all the time, since our beginning, that would be the norm. It doesn't hurt. Because this is where it always has been. But once you know who you are and to whom you belong, this condition here, it hurts. When you open up the Torah, you begin to read, he said, I'm going to set you above all the nations on the earth. And now you're looking around, all the nations on the earth, they rule over you. Come on. It causes you to do exactly what they did in Mizraim. They were in Mizraim a long time. But it wasn't until their cries reached heaven that he decided to deliver them. But see, what we have done as a nation of Yashra'al, we have assimilated into the culture of those that rule over us so deeply until we think we're them, we think we're equal to them, and you don't have a cry. And you don't want to cry. But we're going to stop right there, and we're going to continue this lesson next week. We're going to identify who the nation of Yashra'al is. Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat